Arizona near totally bans abortion, an illegal immigrant becomes an influencer and then gets arrested, Biden lies about his college education while also attempting to forgive your student loans, and a teenager is arrested for working with ISIS. Let's get into it. I'm Cam Higby with Today's America, and this is your news rundown. In Arizona, abortions will soon be totally outlawed, except for when the mother's life is in danger, following a state Supreme Court ruling. NPR reported that since December of 2022, Arizona doctors have been allowed to provide abortions up to 15 weeks into a pregnancy based on a lower court's interpretation of state laws. But the state Supreme Court now says that Arizona should follow a law banning abortions in almost all cases. There will reportedly be no exceptions for rape, which would make Arizona one of the, if not the only state with restrictive abortion laws that doesn't make this exception. This law, however, is not new legislation, but rather a long dormant law from 1864 that can be enforced now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. The justices decided that they will stay enforcement for 14 days, which could end up being longer. Planned Parenthood says that they will continue providing abortions until the law is enforced. An illegal immigrant who amassed over 500,000 followers came to America spewing anti-American rhetoric, mocking the nation, and encouraging the invasion of private homes in the form of squatting. That man now sits in jail, claiming that he misses his freedom and crying of persecution to the New York Post. He said, quote, "I came to the United States because of persecution in my country, but they're doing the same thing to me in the United States, persecuting me." Those quotes came from a jailhouse interview. Boo-hoo. This person was arrested nearly 2 years after illegally crossing the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. The New York Post claims that he was allowed to stay in America on a, quote, Biden administration-approved parole scheme. It is that when he failed to appear for check-ins, he was arrested. He said, quote, "It's all misinformation, the media about me. They're defaming me. They're misrepresenting me in the news. I'm a good father, a good husband, a good son, a good person, humble, respectful to people who respect me." And with that being said, I have just one word: deport. Biden admitted decades ago that despite previously making the claim, he was not the first member of his family to attend college. That hasn't stopped him from continuing to repeat that very lie as President of the United States. The lie was stated again on Monday while giving a speech about student loan forgiveness, which we'll get into next, something Biden promised in the early days of his campaign and has failed to follow through on almost 4 years through his presidency. He said, quote, "I, like an awful lot of people in this audience, was the first in my family to go to college." The president uses this lie to manipulate and relate to his audience to make himself more appealing to them. Biden first admitted this claim was a lie in 1987 during another presidential campaign which failed. The campaign also saw Biden get caught up in a plagiarism scandal where he stole remarks from a British politician. Ironically, Joe Biden also often boasts about his father having attended Johns Hopkins and his grandfather having been an All-American football player at university. How do both of those claims coincide? How do you reconcile that? Nobody in my family has ever been to college, but I'm very proud of my father and grandfather who both went to college. The simple answer might just be he's not lying. He's just not all there. Now, unlike if Trump were to have made this claim, Biden seems to be pretty much left alone by the mainstream liberal outlets. He isn't criticized nearly to the same degree as his predecessor for alleged untruths. Speaking of Joe Biden in college, Biden has a new student debt relief plan that he claims will provide forgiveness to 30 million Americans. To put that into perspective, the total number of Americans in student debt right now is 43 million. So that seems like most of them, right? But don't get too excited. Only 4 million Americans will actually have their debt erased, and only 10 million will see $5,000 or more knocked off their bill. The rest will be reduced payments. And if you're wondering who those 14 million lucky folks will be, the plan will primarily focus on borrowers who have seen ballooned increases on their bill due to interest. Student loan forgiveness is the biggest thing that Biden promised his voters on the campaign trail, and his first term is only a few months from conclusion, and he still failed to deliver on this. This isn't something that I necessarily support, but if you're a young Democrat who voted for Joe Biden so you could have your student debt forgiven, just remember, Biden hasn't delivered in 3 years, and if and when he does deliver, you still probably won't be eligible because you're a young person who hasn't seen a lot of interest on your bill yet. The New York Times reported that Biden administration officials said they could begin handing out some of the debt relief, including canceling up to $20,000 in interest, as soon as this fall if the effort moves forward after the required months-long comment period. Go figure. As soon as this fall, just in time to hold it over your head until after the election. And on to our last story. The FBI has arrested a teenager in Idaho for a plot to carry out a terrorist attack on churches in the state for a foreign entity. Fox reported that Alexander Mercurio is now facing a federal charge of attempting to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization after the FBI says that he devised a plan to incapacitate his father, restrain him using handcuffs, and steal his firearms to use for maximum casualties. The defendant reportedly pledged his allegiance to the notorious Islamic terror group ISIS. The plan was stopped in its tracks by the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. The FBI say that their investigation into the teen began when he had reached out to a, quote, confidential human source and pledged his support for ISIS and, quote, terrorist organizations more generally. They also accused him of spreading ISIS propaganda online. There was also apparently some sort of approval process for his propaganda scheme. An investigator said that his attack plan involved using flame-covered weapons, explosives, knives, a machete, and a pipe. That's all I have for you this week, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment what you thought of these stories down below, and I'll see you right back here in the next one. Thanks.